Spencer, can you let Dave the Wave in, please? Hey guys, what's up? It's Hav. Welcome to the Locker Room Access pregame show. One of the most widely watched shows in the country, Emmy Award winning, a full cast of characters. I'm the only one on here right now, I think, but we do have some special guests joining. Dougie Fresh will be in the show. Dougie is joining. He has some tech issues. We have Dave the Wave, who you guys know from Locker Room Access. He's going to be breaking down Florida. I'm getting a flurry of texts. Anyway, let's talk a little bit. I hope you guys are having a good holiday season, by the way. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm glad we're getting into ACC season. That's exciting. I've got my cowboy hat on, my corduroy Western blazer, which I don't get to wear a lot. So I figured playing SMU, this was a good place to break it out. I want to talk a little bit right now about something that was kind of stark and brutal, absolutely brutal to me, and I'm sure to you. Let's talk about the SEC ACC Challenge. They might have to rename it after this year, but I like this series. You know, when I was playing, we had the ACC Big East Challenge. That was a big deal. That was like groundbreaking at the time. I think my first year in 1989, my redshirt year, we played Villanova in the Meadowlands. We went on to play several other Big East teams. It's a great concept. It's a great way for teams to gauge themselves early. This year was the most lopsided kind of Power 5 or Power 4, whatever you want to call it, challenge ever. Okay, I got a couple stats here. Let's go through it. So ACC, I know you guys know this, but I'm going to break it down. We went 14-2. The two teams who won it were Duke and Clemson. Duke beat a very, very good Auburn team, incredible Auburn team that I think will be a Final Four contender. And then Clemson beat Kentucky, you know, kind of the darling of the SEC for basketball. They've traditionally been the best team in the past 50 years. Clemson took them down at home. That made me feel better. So, you know, you could maybe say that the ACC went big game hunting here. We've got, of the top 5 teams in the country, we took down 2 of them in the ACC. The bad news for us is that we went 14-2. But let's break it down even further. Since November 4th, when the season actually started, the ACC is winning all of its games at a 65% clip. So 65% of the games we played, we have won. Here's some other big conferences. The Big 12 has won 74%. The Big East has won 75%. The Big 10 has won 81%. And the SEC, largely by playing against the ACC, has won 87%, which is kind of ridiculous. The average margin of victory in the SEC ACC Challenge was 13 points. There were 5 wins by 20 points or more in that series. The most shocking one, and this one kind of rocked me, was Mississippi State beat the snot out of Pitt 90-57. And if you look at all of our projections kind of moving forward, and what the preseason projections were, Pitt is supposed to be, you know, like a top 4 team. So this year, the ACC's record against Power 5s were 14-43 for a .246 winning percentage. Now, this is normally where I throw it over to my co-hosts and say, okay, do we have a perception problem or do we have a performance problem? I've always fallen back to, you know, look, the ACC has been getting dinged in the past 5 to 8 to 10 years. Hold on, everyone's freaking out here. Okay, Fresh. There we go. All right, we got Dave. All right, thank God, Dave, you're here. Good to see you. I've been going solo, which hasn't been bad because all I've been doing, and I thought this was more important than maybe the game breakdown, was talking about the SEC ACC challenge. They're going to
Yep, I
rename.
heard it all.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we got our butts kicked. It was really bad. In the past, I think I've always fallen back to, okay, a lot of media. SEC is a big conference. They're bigger than us. They kind of dominate. Let's count the sports. They dominate in football. They dominate in baseball. They dominate in swimming and well, no, we dominate in swimming. Sorry, they dominate in softball. They have a really great conference, but in the past, when you start looking at the tournaments, and the ACC has typically been the last few years a five team NCAA tournament like conference, we've outperformed. We've tended to do really well in the NCAA tournament, even when the conference has been, sort of frowned upon. So the question comes up, is this a perception problem or a performance problem? Is this big media pushing a narrative because they're kind of the bullies on the block? I would have argued it was much more of a perception thing until this year. Now I kind of feel like it's a performance problem. And I'm going to highlight the fact that, we the ACC has a .246 win percentage against the Power Fives. So, Dave, give me some thoughts on, the shift, because, I'm an ACC guy, early 90s ACC guy. We were the best conference by far. Started shifting. It moves. It bounces around. Big 12 had a great run. Big Ten's had a run. SEC. It seems like it's SEC is king right now. What do you think has changed, and how much better are they than us right now? I know you watch a lot of basketball.
Yeah, I would say there's a couple of thoughts that come to mind. I think the first thought is you mentioned only 4, 5, 6 bids for the ACC basically since 2020, right, when there was no
Yeah,
tournament. So
5 year, yeah,
you
4
might
or
as well
5
say
years.
since 2019. 2019, the ACC had 3 number 1 seeds, right? Virginia, North Carolina, and Duke were all number 1 seeds. Since then, COVID hit, and then all the NIL started coming out, right? I think my number one thing is the SEC doesn't have these academic institutions that are so worried about their reputations. We've talked about this,
We have.
that they jumped on it. And it was also at that time when you had Tony Bennett, Mike Krzyzewski, Roy Williams, Boeheim, all
Boeheim.
those guys winding down, used to doing things the old way. And I don't think any of them were quick to jump, even if their schools were okay with it. None of them were quick to jump into the pool. And the SEC, right at that time, had hired a bunch of guys, right? Bruce Pearl had already been there for a while. You got Oates at Alabama. You got Cal always there at Kentucky, still at Arkansas. So all these guys that came into the SEC with a bunch of money from football and no lack of willpower to go ahead and push the envelope, jump at these guys. And then you had the extra COVID year as well. So now we're in their last year. So you mentioned perception. I'm still seeing a bunch of, I'll make an analogy. So my 14U boys soccer team just played in a tournament a few weeks ago. They were convinced 4 or 5 of the other kids were 16 because they had full beards, full muscle, fully
Oh,
built
yeah.
out. And we're still playing against those teams, right? These teams are 23, 24. Most of the teams, the good teams, the 3 teams we played against, right, that smoked us, have older, built out bodies. It's like Virginia used to be in 14, 15, 16 when we had a Kill and we had Brogdon. We had these guys that were men out there because we had redshirt years and they were all, the guys who played were mostly junior seniors, even 50-year seniors, right? So I'm seeing those are some of the factors is they jumped in quickly. The coaches didn't care. They were given carte blanche at their schools to go ahead and spend. And we still see those older kids. Now, one benefit I think too is after this year, the 5th years and the 4th years are out, right? So that's going to bring the pool back from a age perspective. And I think one thing that I've forgotten very easily to forget with this year's team, it's not just a newer team. We are younger than just about everybody we've played to.
Yeah.
And younger teams at Virginia don't do as well. We just haven't had. I mean, if you think about it, there's not a top 7 rotation player that's a senior. When's the last time you could say that at Virginia?
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. And the other
Payne's the
thing that
only
I'll
senior, and
talk,
he doesn't play much, right? So,
yeah, and I think you touched on this. The other thing is, people talk about like when I was coming out, people, and we're going to get into the Florida, I'm sorry, into the SMU thing in a minute, but people didn't talk about what class you were in. They said how old you were. Now, this whole reclass thing, you have, 19-year-old sophomores, I'm sorry, 19-year-old juniors, like everyone's way older.
yeah,
And I think that started, actually, I blame it. I'm a Massachusetts guy. I blame it on hockey because parents would hold their kid back to play hockey. It's become epidemic. Let's move beyond it. I still think the ACC is great. At the end of the year, I think there's a one team that can maybe win the national championship for the ACC,
yeah.
and that's Duke, and we'll see if that happens. But all right, let's talk about SMU. This is a big day. It's a big day for their school, right? Recently
Sure.
admitted they're sort of like a newborn baby in the family. They're an ACC newborn, along with Stanford and Cal. It's really exciting to them. They've certainly handled their business in terms of the football side of things, and they'll be playing for the ACC championship shortly. But this team, and this new coach. So you've got a new team to the ACC and a coach who I think we all remember Florida Gulf Coast and Dunk City and his kind of entry into the world. Then he went to USC. I think he did pretty well there. I think the last year was really bad, but Andy Enfield plays an aggressive style of offense. He's always recruited good players. I still remember that game at Florida Gulf Coast where they beat the crap out of Georgetown and dunked. They had like 11 or 12 dunks.
Yeah.
Iconic NCAA moment. But now he's at SMU. He's in Dallas, hence the outfit. Um, Talk to us about that team and maybe a little bit about Andy Enfield and what you see coming up, because I know they can put up, they're going to push. We're going to slow it down. What happens, Dave?
Yeah, I was just looking at his record the last few years, and then I saw that he had been at USC for 10 years, and I was like, wow, that was
Yeah,
fast, because it feels like that Florida Gulf Coast game was just not that long ago, and it was 2013. I was
agreed.
like, wow, and he parlayed that into a nice run at USC. Got a lot of good players there, a lot of NBA players. Obviously, Bronny, the last one, but what's his name? The center power forward for Cleveland was
Yeah,
Ty Jerome's team. Yeah.
he's
Mobley.
good. And by the way,
Yeah.
anytime we can tie the locker room access pregame show into LeBron James family, we're going to do it. We're playing against the guy who coached Bronny. Okay,
That's right.
keep
There you
going.
go. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, no different there. The knock on him at USC, and I was a SoCal guy for 20 years, so I still have a lot of connections out there and hear what's going on. Is just a lack of discipline within a team, like just within the concepts, and just couldn't stay disciplined enough to have good, solid runs within conference and then within any postseason runs. But yeah, to your point, at SMU, same thing. They're currently tied for ninth in the country in just raw offense. So not taking into account who they played, but simply points per possession. They're way up there, ninth. To kind of give you an idea, that's tied with Florida, who we just gave up the most offensive points per possession in recent
Yeah,
history. I think since 2011, or maybe the second most since 2011, right? So they have 4 guards who all shoot it, all can go fast, all can go around you. And then the 2 bigs inside. It's one. I was going back and forth with a couple guys on Anthony Robinson, but I don't see us having anybody that can compete with their center physically. Now maybe they can do some things, maybe draw some fouls on him, but dude's 7'2", 265 from Turkey.
yeah,
Doesn't shoot any threes, so he's strictly an inside guy. And then they have Traore, who was a 5-star out of high school. He's a sophomore now. I think he had gone to Auburn and then had decommitted. There was stuff around there was a bunch of stuff around NIL for him, but he was highly talented out of high school. He's okay so far. But he seems like he doesn't play defense as much. But I don't know if that's going to matter against us because our bigs don't do a lot of scoring. So yeah, that's the challenge is can we hold them in check with scoring, and then can we score 75? I really don't see.
I think that's the number.
I mean, I said 80 because our defense has not been good in for a full 40 or even for 32. I think we've been good for 20 maybe in a game against the good teams, against Florida, against St. John's. But that's the challenge. Can we score 75? I've seen a lot of folks, Adventive Quasar, he does a lot of data in forum, just talked about how they don't stop people. The question is, will that matter against us? Because we don't score in bunches. Usually we scored in bunches right at the beginning of the Florida game. And I think that just dovetails into how do we beat them? We have to be aggressive in the first 15 seconds of the shot clock. When we did that in our last game, we were doing well. And then all of a sudden,
early in the game,
Day goes out with 2 fouls and we slow down, and it didn't matter whether it was officially a turnover or not. We had 11 straight possessions where we didn't score. Right.
Yeah, let's talk turnovers. We're turning it over a ton, especially against the good teams. It looks like we might have Fresh. No, he's switching back and forth. The turnovers are a problem, and they're especially a problem when you don't have possessions, right? So I've been a big advocate of really letting, if IMAC wants to pull up from 6 feet behind the line early in the shot clock, that's still better than a turnover, right? Because you have a better chance to score. There's a better outcome. There's a chance for a better outcome. The turnovers are killing us. How much, and this is a hard question and kind of a broad question, but how much have you seen Ron deviate from Tony's philosophy and system? And how much have you seen him stick to it, like percentage-wise?
Yeah. I've talked about it, and we've talked about it. It doesn't feel like they're doing anything different. But first thing is, Ron's hamstrung with the roster he was given, right? It wasn't his choice necessarily.
Yep, I agree.
But then even that, it's not even the roster he thought he was going to have either, because Worley left. Everyone thought Worley was going to start at point guard. He had the hand issue where he wasn't fully healthy, and I heard there was personal issues too. It wasn't just the coaching change why he left. It was he wanted a full run up to the season. There was apparently some other personal things. I don't know. I never heard the full story, but he was supposed to start. And Christian Bliss was actually, he redshirted last year. He was actually supposed to be in the rotation before Day was. Day was an add-on when we found out what happened to Gertrude.
Right.
Then you take into the fact that Gertrude's not healthy either. So that's your 3 most dynamic guards that aren't there athletically, at least with Worley and Gertrude. So now you're limited to Day, who didn't play a whole lot of point guard last year at Kansas State. So now he's having to play point guard, and then you have Rhodey kind of taking point guard duties. Well, as soon as Rhodey is in there trying to run point guard, it just doesn't work because he can't go around anybody. He can't draw anybody. There's no pressure on the defense to contract, for kickouts. People can't get open. He's just not athletic enough to play point guard at the ACC level for more than 8-10 minutes a game. And so it's hard for me to blame Sanchez for any of that when you don't have 3 guards. He thought, well, he knew he wasn't going to have Eli, but the other 2, I think they thought they were going to have. In fact, apparently Bliss got hurt when he was working with a private trainer when he wasn't supposed to, and he was getting ready to come back. So, but yeah, I'd like to see. There's rumors Bliss is dressing today. I don't know if he's going to play, but there's rumors that he's dressing. So
yeah. So I think I made the comment on forum that as a guy who basically hasn't played a competitive game in, call it, 20 months, right? Because going back to his last year of high school, do you throw him in at SMU? It's going to be electric. I mean, I don't really know how big their arena is. I think it's like a small but excitable arena. It's their first ever ACC game there as a member of the ACC conference. It's going to be lit. They're also playing in the ACC championship game. So I'm a little bit pissed at SMU. They just joined. They're playing in the ACC championship football game, and they're playing UVA. So that makes me kind of want to hate them. But do you throw Bliss into that blender, or do you say, you know what, this guy hasn't played in a while? We've got Bethune-Cookman, which is an awesome school for interpretive folk dancing. Do we save him for that game, or do we throw him right in? I think they're going to save him. I don't think they want him to go out there and fail in his first game in 20 months. But what do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't put him out there as the primary point guard. I would put him out there when Day-Day's on the floor. I wouldn't mind putting him out there for 3 or 4 minutes in each half and see how he does with Day-Day there, so that it's not all on Bliss. Bliss can play a little bit off ball. He can play a little bit on ball. The problem is, where's he going to find those minutes? To me, I've been saying it all year and even last year. IMAC played all the minutes last year because we didn't have other shooters. It's not the case this year. Rhodey's actually shooting pretty well. Sharma has the reputation to shoot. Power can shoot. Saunders can shoot it.
Day-Day, our leading three-point shooter.
Day-Day can flat out shoot. Day-Day, exactly. So I don't understand why IMAC, who's basically a one-trick pony, he's a shooter. He's playing pretty good defense too. But when I've looked at his games, he plays better when he plays under 30 minutes. And you're just going to, when you're a shooter and you can't get open with the ball, that means you're running around like Kyle Guy used to do. You shouldn't play 35 minutes a game because you're not going to have your legs. Well, even in spurts, you're not going to have your legs. Like if you ran, all of a sudden, Virginia specializes in the, under 16 timeout being at like 13 minutes, right? Because there's no stoppages. You're just going to be tired and you're not going to be effective. So I really don't understand why IMAC is playing so much, because he's not effective unless he's shooting the ball. Well, so why not give Bliss, Sharma, I think, a few more of his minutes? I think Bliss, if Bliss can get back and be what I think he can be, then he'll probably take some of Day-Day's minutes too and take the pressure off Day-Day. Because right now Day-Day has to play 35 minutes. We don't have. I
like that.
We saw what happened in the last game when he went out.
It might have been you in the forum, or maybe it was Cuts. I think it was Cuts. By the way, the best thing that happened to me so far in December was that Cuts had a early morning Saturday read come out, which of course I read. My favorite habit is when that comes out, I retreat to the guest bathroom after my coffee, and I sit there until my legs fall asleep, which is about the same time it takes to get through a cut. But I think Cut said, like, hey, each half, Tane should come in for IMAC. Now, he talked a lot about rotations and how that balances it out. But the real thing is we're only, we have 3 months of the season, regular season basketball left. He can't be playing, 35 minutes a game, Isaac. So let's get him some rest. Let's throw some spaghetti on the wall, to use his terminology. Let's see what we have. Now, here's the counter to that is it counts today. Like now we have a real game. So, but I loved what he said, and shout out to Cuts for this. I think they need to redo kind of Tane's mentality, almost like he's got to be going back to the Pistons in the mid 80s that the Celtics used to be. They need to say to him, hey, when you go in, you just cook. You just cook for 5. You're not going to be in for more than 3 to 5 minutes. Just cook. Take it at him. Draw a foul. Yeah. And like go off, and then we're going to take you out. And if you're not like so gassed that you're almost throwing up, like, run in the tunnel is what he said. But I like that. Redefining his role as saying go in and be a badass is going to be important. All right. Did we get started
in a different way real quick? Have to.
Yeah.
You asked about the pace. I watch all the Celtics games, and I watch some NBA, watch the other college games. So many teams in 2024, whether it's a make or miss, they get the ball and they push. Just push it across half and see what you have. And I don't care if that's Rhodey, if that's Day-Day, if that's IMAC.
I
Saunders
agree.
can do it. Power could do it with the ball. We have plenty of guys who can actually just take the ball. We still are taking the ball, looking for a point guard, afraid to do anything instead of pushing the ball off the floor. Pressure the defense and just see if you can get something on a cross match because they didn't get back because no one's expecting it. Do that 10, 12, 14 times a game and see what you can get. I see so many, and it's not even a basket right away. It's just they're not matched up fully. All of a sudden, 4 seconds later, there's a swing pass, and it's a guard on a big, and he can take them, or something like that. But I haven't seen any of that,
I get it.
and I don't. Again, it's hard for me to tell without Worley and without Bliss. Like, are we just scared to give it to anyone else? But anyway, that's what I'd like to see. Just that aspect and put some pressure on the defense immediately.
Okay, so we're gonna get into predictions on score, but first I'm gonna do some high school superlatives here. And there's only two that I'm gonna do. I've got a list of about 10 of them, but today against SMU in their first ever ACC game for UVA, who is the most likely to succeed?
Against their size, I'm going to say Saunders might struggle again. So I'll say Day might be able to cook today against their guards.
Okay, on that, I'm going to throw a wrinkle into it. And this is way out of bounds, but I'm rooting for him really hard. I'm going to say Blake. I'm going to say Blake is going to actually have like a Florida-esque game from 2 years ago, not the one a week ago or 5 days ago.
He actually did pretty
But
well last week too. Yeah.
yeah, he had a good game. I think Blake might have built up some confidence, so I'm going to say Blake. And then, so that's most likely to succeed. Who's going to point at random places the most around the court? Oh wait, that's Rhodey. We all agree on that.
Oh boy.
No, all right. Give me your score. Give me your score. Prediction.
Head
It's a
score,
tough
heart
one.
score. Let's go. I don't know. The last few years, our road has not looked good, so I'll go 78-68 SMU is my head. My heart would flip that.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I think everybody battles that. Just to balance it out, I'm going to say that playing some of these top 20 teams in, St. John's, Tennessee, Florida, that's going to serve us well today. I think we're going to win this one. We're going to slow it down. We're going to win 68-65.
All right.
Just to balance it out. But okay, so that's the pregame show. Guys, thanks for joining. We'll be back at the half. Me, Dave the Wave, potentially fresh if he figures out his internet. And shout out to Spencer for helping us through this technology. We'll see you guys at the half. Go Hoos.
Go Hoos.